You are in for a real treat today because we're going to talk to one of my favorite people in independent film, Dan Mirvish, one of the founders of Slamdance. He's got a new independent film that he's working on now called 18 and a Half. Dan and I are just going to have a fun chat, and you can listen in if you want. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and today I'm very pleased to have on Dan Mirvish, my friend of back to the 90s. Let's be frank.
Back to the 1890s, I think it was.
Yeah, it might have been. It might have been. But yeah, no, the 90s, and met you at Slamdance and just known you ever since. Like you're one of my favorite people in indie film because like myself, you have an unbridled optimism. So
thank you. Yeah. I try to put the cheerful into cheerful subversive. So
you do, and then also you have some of the best kernels of advice. One of the pieces of advice that you give that I actually repeat to other people, I always give you credit, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Dan Mirvish says this is how do you become an independent filmmaker? Marry a doctor.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
yes, marry well, one way or another.
Marry well is helpful, but it's just helpful to have someone who's got a stable career, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing you and I have learned as long as we've been around. Indie film isn't stable. What have you been up to? And also in particular, what are you how are you surviving the pandemic other than binge watching? I think I'm running out of shows, but
yeah, I've been watching Columbo mainly. So and in addition to your podcast, listening to the Columbo podcast by these two great Scottish guys. But no, so I have been spending, for better or for worse, I've had a lot to do during the pandemic. In March, I was shooting my new film called 18 and a Half, which is a Watergate thriller / dark comedy. And we shot about 80% of it and then had to take a pandemic pause or healthy hiatus, as I like to call it. And then we were shooting out in Long Island in New York, and I live in LA in Culver City. So I came back here. I brought one of the hard drives with me. So I've been editing this entire time, like almost every day I've been editing. But then also around coincidentally the same time, I got approved to do a second edition of my book, The Cheerful Subversive's Guide to Independent Filmmaking. So I've also been writing the second edition of that book, which has been kind of fun, which of course has a chapter on how to shoot a film in a global pandemic. And then I've been baking sourdough every day. And I've got a great starter and very proud of that. And, feeding my kids and half the people in the neighborhood.
Well, I'm trying to lay off the carbs.
I know that's the problem.
That's the worst.
Yeah, have you put on the COVID-15 yet?
Oh, well, no, I've actually been going for a lot of walks, so I'm fairly stable.
That's
and I'm trying to do. I'm a keto cheater, so I'm keto, but I do eat sourdough bread when I go out because there's too many places that have amazing bread that I love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So. Now, a lot of people have said, like, during the pandemic and during like all this lockdown and whatnot, how we've dramatically changed our lives. See, I cut off everyone. I don't know. I can't figure this out. I'm plugged in direct to the Ethernet, and I still sort of pop in and out. Whatever. If that's my worst problem, then my life isn't bad at all. I'm doing fine. But a lot of people will say, like, look, if you don't emerge from this pandemic, from the lockdown with like a screenplay written or a novel or a thing that you're doing, like, then you've wasted your time. I tend to agree with that, but I also think that there's a fair amount of, I'm sure you may have struggled with this, is it's hard to remain as optimistic as you and I are. It's hard to remain that when, I see friends struggling. I have a couple friends who are bartenders. That shouldn't surprise anyone. But they're struggling because their bars are not open. So I'm armed with a certain amount of guilt over that. I have friends I really can't help, and so that weighs on me, in addition to, just trying to, I think that just emerging from this, staying in business will be success. And for you, you're getting back to shooting soon.
Yeah.
You hope.
Yeah. We still have 4 days left to shoot the film. And so that's going to be sometime this fall. We don't know when yet. We are raising money actively to do that, which is, of course, is a challenging time to be raising money. But
Right.
but you never know. For every 9 people that are having a horrible time, there's like 1 person that accidentally made money. So and you don't know who that is, so you have to ask everybody. So
well, I would say in the case of Film Threat, we've definitely our audience is up in terms of the main thing is people want to know what's new on VOD or new on streaming. That's like the thing that we've discovered in our search is new on VOD, new on Hulu, new on Netflix, whatever. So that's a search. But yeah, we're pretty much the same. I would say I think we're lucky that we have not been as affected. I mean, we used to have a studio that we did the podcast out of, and here you and I are on. I mean, this is the way we do everything now, right? So we had to dramatically make some changes just to, continue to do what we do. But so when you told me you had 4 days left to shoot, I thought, oh my God, you only have, you have 4 days left to shoot. You have 4 shooting days left. And there's no way around it. You got to shoot those days out.
Yeah. I mean, it's entire scenes, entire characters that are in there. It's not like we can just go with what we have. So I mean, yeah, it's a big chunk of the movie. What precautions are you taking? Are you going to go back to New York to shoot or? Yeah. So we'll go back. So yeah, we were shooting in this great locations called the Silver Sands Motel and Cottages in Greenport, New York. It's run by my friend Terry Keefe. I think. Do you know Terry from the
name is very familiar.
Yeah, he used to be the film editor at Venice Magazine.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So anyway, so Terry like inherited this motel from his grandparents a few years ago, and they had built it in the 60s, and it's just, it still looks like it was like you're stepping into the 1970s at least. So it's this great location. He's done a lot of, it gets like 90 fashion shoots a year, high-end fashion shoots come out there, but no one had ever shot a feature. So we were the first feature to shoot there. And we actually wrote the script around the location, like a classic indie film would do. So what's nice about it is that it's already pretty much a self-quarantine situation. Like it's 40 acres in the middle of nowhere, 20-minute walk from the closest town, and the town itself is a 3.5-hour drive from New York City. So even leading up to the shutdown, we were about as self-quarantined as a production could get. In fact, the DGA told us we were one of like the last 2 productions shooting in North America. So when we go back there, there's a lot of things that we just intrinsically will do that already fit like the SAG and DGA protocols for COVID safety. So, being in the middle of nowhere, having a small crew, everyone has their own bathrooms, a lot of that stuff, we naturally fit that paradigm anyway. And we've already shot our kissing scenes and our dancing scenes and our fighting scenes, and we never had any crowd scenes anyway. So we don't have to rewrite anything. So a lot of that stuff is going to be, easier. The tricky part, and all the cast and crew that we have are pretty much New York based. I think I may wind up being the only LA person that has to fly out there. And if I have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks when I get there, that's fine. That's, I can do that. But so I think in our case, the production side of it is going to be a lot simpler of an adjustment than for a lot of other people. But it's still, it costs money to shut down early. We were barely making it, as an indie film. Of course, we never had enough money even to make it through the first part of the shoot, and then to shut down. And of course, we don't have the fancy insurance that covers coming back because we got the cheapo insurance. So we have to raise money all over again. But we're doing it. We're getting there, and I think we'll be back one way or another. So,
well, we're gonna talk about how you're gonna raise money, but Film Threat could always use support. So I just want to plug this. I'm wearing the classic Film Threat logo shirt that we have at our Film Threat shop. If you go to shop.filmthreat.com, we have which I created basically so I could just buy my own shirts. I think I'm the only person that all the sales have come from me, but that's just a way that
same with my 18.5 mug, right here.
You can always use a new mug. Well, let's talk about okay, so are you going to do another crowdfunding campaign? Because I've only successfully done 2, and I've failed like 2 or 3 times.
Right.
But it's a weird, dude. It's, you know what it is? I have distilled what I believe that crowdfunding is. It's how much money do you like me?
Yeah.
How much money do you like me? And how much are you? They say that the average, you can go to danmirvish.com. I just want to say this for those listening and I can't see the little scroll and ticker that says go to danmirvish.com for more. That's where you can go and get more information, get on your email list. I get your emails. They're awesome because they're funny. They're entertaining. They've got a little kernel of info, but like you spend time. I mean, it's, first of all, it's like talking to you, getting your newsletter. It's not like I tend to get a little too stiff when I do stuff like that, a little too informal. You're very personal, and I love that.
Oh, thanks, man.
So crowdfunding, it's how much money do you like me? And then they say that the average person who donates to a Kickstarter, it's about $40 is sort of your, if you look at like, what is the average contribution, it's usually about $40 because that's an amount of money people are willing to say, whatever, $40, you know, if that's a Blu-ray or whatever. So how much are you looking to raise for your 4-day shoot?
Well, for the shoot itself, we need about another, because we've raised some money already, so we need about another 55,000. Hopefully by the time this comes out, it'll be less than that. So yeah, it's around another 50 grand or so. And then, you know, then we still need to raise money for post-production and completion costs too. But at least to get the rest of the movie in the can, it's about another 50 grand. You know, we're hoping that we can, you know, shave money off the budget, you know, and save money in different places. But on the other hand, you know, you've got to do individual meals now for catering, and you have to have a COVID, you know, monitor on set. I mean, there's definitely more costs associated with shooting in the COVID environment, at least right now. So yeah, and you have to abide by all the, you know, SAG has a whole checklist, and New York State has a checklist. So you have to do all those things. Like I said, a lot of things will fit anyway without having to do much effort. But the meals are definitely going to be more expensive, and things like that. And you have to have masks for everyone, and testing everyone is tricky, and that's hard to do now. I mean, we're recording this in August. You know, testing times are like 7 to 10 days, which doesn't really work if SAG is saying you have to test people 3 days before you start shooting. So there's some of these logistics that just need to be figured out, which I'm hoping in the next month or two, you know, people will have figured out a way to do that in New York, you know.
Well, I'm curious, like how it's affected. I think a big budget production can certainly absorb that cost. I had a COVID test, but I was in the hospital about to get my appendix out. It was emergency appendectomy.
Oh my gosh. Right. I remember you got that. Yeah.
Oh,
you okay?
I'm great. I got the coolest new scar now. It's going to be awesome.
Good,
when bathing suit season comes around, I got a cool new scar. You'll be able to check it out. I'll show you. Next time we're in the jacuzzi in Park City, which we did one time.
Yeah, no, I should say that Chris, literally, you are the very first guest we had at the annual Slamdance Hot Tub Summit.
The Hot Tub Summit. I like what you make it sound
15 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a TED Talk, but you're in your skivvies. Exactly. But yeah, no, I got a COVID test and it was back in 20 minutes. Like that, just like, well, I mean, you're at the hospital, so
yeah,
you know. But they had to test me before I went into surgery because they would have performed surgery differently if they knew I had COVID, right?
Right. Yeah.
That changes things. Yeah. Now I'm actually in the midst of working on a documentary now. I've been doing interviews actually using this platform that we use to record a StreamYard that we use to record. I mean, we're just mainly using it to capture audio more than anything. Right. So it's kind of changed the way that I'm doing this documentary, which is Attack of the Doc. So, and I'm doing a chunk of interviews that are going to be done over this platform, over the internet, basically. At a certain point, I have to interview people in person, and I'm just kicking the can. I'm just saying, you know, I'll do those interviews, but I'm looking for these rules to change because everything you're talking about, I can't afford to do. And I don't want to have to do another crowdfunder because it's so all consuming. You know, it's like a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding.
I know. Yeah, no, I think with docs, it's simpler. I know people that have already started shooting docs, and you know, there's just fewer people involved. You just get a
True.
longer lens and a longer mic, and
That's true.
you know, and or a plastic shield between you and the person you're interviewing, or something like, you know. So there's definitely ways to do it that I think are easier with a doc. But yeah, but crowdfunding, I mean, we, you know, on 18 and a half, I mean, we did a fun Seed and Spark campaign on this one last fall, and you know, and then we've kept our page going on Film Collaborative, which is a 501c3, so people can continually make PayPal donations or credit card donations through that.
Is that like Patreon? Because we have a Patreon for Attack of the Doc.
You know, it's probably, I've never used Patreon, but it's probably kind of similar in effect, which is to say, like, anytime someone can give you money, right? Like, it's not part of a specific campaign. So, and that's something that we've kept going. And what's nice about it, because it's a 501c3, is those are tax deductible. So I don't know that we're going to do like another full-on campaign. Like, we're kind of in a soft campaign right now, kind of going back to sort of friends and family and Facebook friends saying, by the way, if you happen to have money, you know, lying around, let us know. And honestly, you know, there are people that still have money or made money during this time, and you don't know. So you kind of have to ask everyone. But that said, we're also looking to talk to distributors and sales agents and things like that. I mean, if we can get the money from a quote unquote film company, that's great. But, you know, my experience of doing this for 25 years is you don't get, you know, I've got a 540 page single spaced list of quote unquote film companies, and none of them have ever given me a dime. It's literally, it's the friends, it's family, it's fans, it's supporters, it's people that want to get involved and want to, you know, put on a show. And at the end of the day, those are your most reliable partners in the film business, you know. So yeah, and sometimes campaigns work, sometimes they don't. I've been pretty lucky with mine, but I always set my goal really low. So
yeah, I think that's the secret that I learned. I think the secret to doing a successful crowdfunding campaign is to do one that fails first. And let me tell you why, because the two campaigns I did that succeeded, I did one previous, both of them failed the first time and I cut them off. And then the second one succeeded because what you learn is sort of market research. What are the most popular things that people are choosing? What is the feedback you're getting? So it's almost like you can get feedback from friends all you want, but the marketplace really decides. And I think what's helpful is I did the two campaigns that succeeded, failed the first time, I retooled and then brought them back. And then what I did is I used all the people that contributed the first time that they weren't charged. I brought them back in and then found a whole new audience. So there was some distance in between the failed and the successful. But so I don't know, that's a thing. It's sort of like, here's the starter campaign. I would like to talk to you about, I've never used Seed and Spark. I used Indiegogo once, which I thought was a terrible experience. I've also contributed to some Indiegogos, two of them where I never got the thing. And one, I spent like $400 on some tech thing and never got it. And never got a refund. But I like Kickstarter mainly because of the tools after the fact, right? Like the way you can reach out with surveys and whatnot. So, but Seed and Spark sounds cool.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's very similar to Kickstarter. I had been planning on using Kickstarter last fall, and then there was it wasn't very well reported, certainly in the film trades, but at the time there was a union issue. Kickstarter had just fired 2 employees for trying to start a union there, and it was kind of poised to become a big scandal. And it was reported in some of the tech trade, but no one in the film business even noticed it. But I was like, oh, hang on a second, I don't want to like jump into a potential big scandal here where nobody wants to go on Kickstarter and, you know, and put my potential backers into like an awkward situation. So I was like, you know what? I've known Emily Best, who runs Seed and Spark, for a long time, and they've been sponsors at Slamdance. So why don't I just go with Seed and Spark? And it was fine. It went very smoothly, and I like them. So, and they're a bit more hands-on because it's a much smaller organization. No, it was great. We, you know, doubled our goal or something like that. We raised like $17,000 through them. But what I always tell filmmakers is that, you know, I always set my goals really low, like $10,000 to do a, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 film, because it's Kickstarter. It's not finisher. Like you shouldn't expect to raise your whole budget through crowdfunding, because also what tends to happen is that, you may find like, an old college roommate gives you $40, right? Like you said. But then they post that on their Facebook page or your link to it. And their sister, who's married to the Silicon Valley investor, says, "Oh, this sounds interesting. I'll give you $10,000." And that $10,000 doesn't go into your Kickstarter campaign. That's goes as an equity investment or as a donation, or it doesn't always show up on your campaign per se, but it really is part of the campaign. So, on this film, I think we, technically raised $17,000 through our Seed and Spark campaign. But then by having the Film Collaborative page open, we raised another like $8,000 on there. But then with investors, I think we raised $110,000 in equity. And it all, more or less comes from the same campaign, from that pitch video that you do. You're going to use that pitch video, whether it's for the Kickstarter campaign of Seed and Spark or for equity investors or donors.
That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely want to check out Seed and Spark for my next project, or maybe if I need, when I'm fingers crossed, hoping I don't need to go back to the well, I would rather just change our production method. We've been calling it, we're going to Ken Burns it, which is basically we're interviewing a lot of people online, and then we're going to use the audio over photographs and video. Right. And then there's a short list of people we plan to interview in person that we're going to do at the last possible moment, because we want to do it in a very personal way. It's not just a sit down interview. We're going to their homes. And so that's why we're waiting until next year to bank those interviews, because fingers crossed there's going to be a vaccine, or at least things will have died down where the fear is gone. I think that's what almost everyone I know, when I talk to people that are working on projects, they're like, "Oh, in February we're opening up our offices, or we're doing this or whatever." Like, people have just like gone, "Okay, 2020, it's done.
Right.
It's over. Yeah. It's over." But 2021, there's no excuses. We're getting back to work. But you mentioned earlier kick finisher. Isn't that Mrs. Mirvish? Isn't she the kick finisher?
She is. No, thancefully I've not had to ask my wife for very much money over the years. So, but she does. She's the one who buys the bread flour at Costco that allows me to make the sourdough. Which is not just a metaphor. So,
I've met your lovely wife and your kids, and your family's great. I mean, you're just you're very lucky. Although mine are grown and they're like,
I know. Yeah. I remember
they're like humans. They're humans. It happens.
Little and playing with a pet hamster.
Not anymore. No, they're giants. They're giants now. Taller than me. So let's talk about indie film truths. I think that what I've always loved about you is, in spite of your unbridled, maybe dangerous optimism, right? Your optimism, you are all about the truth with this, which, I mean, you just explained your campaign and the finances behind it, and the different places you can go for crowdfunding. But I think things. I'm being the optimist. I believe we're living in a golden age now for indie film. You probably have heard me say this
on every episode of the podcast. Yeah.
Nearly every episode I mention this, because I think it's true. And I also think, who knows when people are going to, I don't know that people regularly listen to my podcast. If you do regularly listen to the podcast, you can email at filmthread@gmail.com. I will see it. You can email, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, post a comment on YouTube. I would love to see if people are actually watching or listening on a regular basis. I don't even know if we're gaining audience. I think every once in a while people will like catch an episode here or there. But the reason I repeat it is because I want to push the notion that there are more choices than Mulan, right? There's more than just like your cookie cutter studio movies that are factory filmmaking, or your sort of fast food, like, seen this mainstream movie a ton of times before. This has been our mantra, our mission at Film Thread since I started it right out of high school, oddly, is you got to look beyond that. You've got to have a balanced media diet. You can't live on fast food alone. Someone made a movie about that, Morgan Spurlock. I saw the sequel, Super Size Me 2, very entertaining. you got to look beyond. You've got to look for, other types of, you got to live on a different media diet. And I think that right now there are so many choices in terms of video on demand. So this is the thing I'm pushing, including your film. And which you can go to, just to remind people, you can go to danmirvish.com. I want to repeat that. If you're watching us, you can see it scrolling on there. It looks kind of fancy. I had
DanMirvish for those.
See, I got it right.
Yeah,
Dan Mirvish.
I had interesting. Spelling my name right.
I had Jim Gaffigan on the podcast, the comedian. Love Jim. He's doing a lot of indie movies now. It's really amazing.
I know. We tried to cast him at one point.
He would be great. He was in a movie called Most Wanted. He was in Tesla with Ethan Hawke. I mean, his
schedule is really tough. That's the hard part.
That's probably it.
It's film, but he's still doing stand-up dates, and it's very hard to nail him down on schedule. So,
well, he commented after he was on the show. He said, "Wow, your production value is like you're bigger than Colbert in terms of production value." I was very amused, because usually when we're done with the show, people just leave. He stuck around. We had this whole conversation after that. I wish I recorded. Yeah. Why did I not record it? Oh my God. What can I say? But let's talk about like the thing I've seen, which I really love you do at Slamdance. So there's two things I want to know. One, I want to talk about, what do film festivals look like in 2021?
Right.
That's a thing that I want to know. And then secondly, the thing that I love that you do is whenever you get up and do a Q&A, you drop some sort of a mic drop bomb of some knowledge, something that's really amazing, that you just sort of impart on all the new fresh-faced young filmmakers that are like, oh my God, I'm going to go for my dream. Yeah, and then you kind of smash it a little bit, but then you give them a little hope. Like, it's like you kick them in the nuts and then here's a lollipop. But, so let's talk about film festivals, what they look like in 2021. The second thing is I want to talk about indie film truths. I want to hear your thoughts, because I have heard bandied about weird things about what might happen in Park City during Sundance and what they're planning. South by, they haven't made any announcements yet. Right. We were set to go to South by with a huge team at the last. I mean, we had tickets to fly out on like Tuesday.
Wow.
And they canceled South by on Friday. We had to just, whatever. But what are your thoughts and what are you hearing?
Well, the good news is I think a lot of European festivals are starting to come back in sort of, almost their normal stage. Some sort of hybridized, but having live events one way or another. So our friends in Oldenburg, Germany, which are in September, Deauville in France, Tallinn in Estonia, like these are some pretty substantial festivals, and they're, and I guess Venice is doing something too. I've heard of Venice, but so that's encouraging that within Europe, and also in like Taiwan, they just had a festival, no one's wearing masks. Like, wow, they can do that there, Of course, Americans can't go to these things because we're banned, because
right.
Whatever. But anyway, but it's encouraging to see that other international festivals are coming back. And that's always a thing that I've always imparted to other American filmmakers is like, there's South by, but don't you want to go to Europe? There's a lot of amazing festivals around the world. And my last film, Bernard and Huey, went to 30 festivals on 5 continents, and not the normal 5 that you would normally think of either. So, and that's honestly, that's the most fun part about making films is seeing the world and traveling to these places. But
how are they gonna do it? Because I've heard some weird. Sorry to interrupt you. I've heard some weird rumblings about what may happen at Sundance, that they might do something like a, far lower in-person attendance, but then have spread throughout theaters in the United States. There would be screenings of Sundance movies locally in other parts of the the country. So it would be like a national celebration of Sundance.
Yeah. So that's their sort of plan that they put out there a few weeks ago, or proposal, and they've already started to talk to theaters around the country, but that presumes that theaters around the country are even going to be open in January, which, I think at the time they were sort of presuming, by January, everything will be, theaters will be open. And that might be true. It might not be true. I don't
Well,
know.
it'll be interesting because it's going to be really interesting because I think what's going to happen is you're going to go to the theater and you're going to see 9 screens and they're all going to be showing 1 or 2 movies because of social distancing, because of the capacity that you have to socially distance and space people out. I think that what it's going to do is narrow choices, which to me just makes VOD an even more appealing option to me.
Yeah.
But and then the drive-in, I've just been going to the drive-in every week because I know,
which is great. And I think a lot of festivals, I know like the New York Film Festival is going to do some outdoor screenings. I mean, it's New York, so they're not drive-ins, they're subway-ins or what, you know, like I don't know how they're going to do it. And I think other festivals, maybe in the early fall, and then again in spring and summer, can do that. But if you're in Park City, I don't think you can do that so easily. People are cold for 90 minutes. They don't want to sit outside. And there's, you know, and people in Park City don't have cars, as you know. Like most people, you know, they take the shuttles around or they walk, or, you know, it's not like everybody has a car. You can't just do a drive-in. And even if you did, you get hypothermia. So I don't know that drive-ins are a model for winter festivals in the same way that they will be in other places. But I think the American festival scene is going to be stymied until at least next summer. That's if I had to guess, you know.
I mean, like you normally get sick anyways when you go to Park City.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
we call it Slambola.
Oh, really? I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
I just, but yeah, like whenever you know, they call it the you know, con crud. When you go to like San Diego Comic-Con and places like that, like you get the con crud. And previous to the pandemic, I have always been a fist bump guy.
Right.
If I see you, I will be fist bumping. I will be fist bumping because I don't understand. It's so obvious. The germs, they're on your hands. I don't get it. I also always, probably for the last 20 years, have always, since whenever they invented Purell, I always just kept it in my pocket. I'm not a germaphobe. I'm just like, I don't like to be sick. And yet I do get the flu shot every year. But Sundance is one of the places, if you're going to get sick. I had someone on a film threat crew back in the early 2000s who got so sick they had to go to a doctor like during Sundance, had to go, I'm not down for the count. An old friend of mine, Ron Wells, who got super sick during Sundance and just could not do anything, couldn't go to movies, couldn't do anything, had to have a doctor visit. It was nuts. But yeah, I think early 2021, it's going to be rough going. I think you're going to still see virtual festivals. And I feel sorry for the filmmakers whose movies are being screened. I don't think that I think you need in person. I think you need that energy in the room. They always call it like, you know, when you're that sort of festival air, right? People get way more excited about movies that later they'll see that they're just playing and it's like, oh yeah, I remember I saw that at Sundance. And it's not quite as exciting.
Right.
You know?
And I think it'll be interesting too, because even coming back, you know, in spring or summer 2021, I think you'll see also more interactivity the other way too. So if a filmmaker can't travel to a festival, but there is an audience there, I think people are going to be more inclined to do Zoom Q&As and things like that. And I think and I also think just in terms of Hollywood too, like if they want people to come back to the theater and get away from watching, you know, Netflix on their living room, they're going to have to eventize theatrical screenings and like, okay, what's going to be special about going to the theater? Well, if you get Charlize Theron doing the Q&A and you have to come to the AMC to see it, well, all right, people might get off their couches to do that. So I think it's going to be interesting, you know, how things get back, and as you've talked about a lot, drive-ins, you know, how they're coming back, and people are, you know, I have friends in Nebraska that are literally building a drive-in in the middle of a farmyard, farm in a field right now, you know, from scratch. I know a few people in Nebraska that are doing that. So I think that'll be kind of fun. You know, that's a fun resurgence out of this whole thing. But as far as festivals go, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's what's in the room. I mean, At Slamdance, I don't know. We're still taking our cues from Sundance. We're also taking our cues from the city. I mean, we're friends with the mayor, Andy, of Park City. And, you know, what happened at Telluride, for example, is the festival was all set to go on and have some sort of live version of the festival. And then it was the city council that said, nope, you are not. We do not want all these people coming to our town. And so, nope, you're not bringing them. So I don't know. So we'll see if that happens with Park City or not. Right now, Park City still is saying that they want the festivals to go on, but you know, that could change easily. And I wouldn't begrudge them if they did say that. I mean, I think the nice thing about Sundance and Slamdance and, you know, South by too, is that there's so much of why a filmmaker wants to go there is to get the laurels, to get the, you know, the thing on your poster, to get the imprimatur of having gone to those festivals. So for those festivals, you still get that. That is still, you know, a tangible thing that you get whether the festival happened or not. I mean, I have friends who, quote unquote, went to Tribeca. They didn't really go to Tribeca, you know, but they still got to say they were a Tribeca film, and that helped them get distribution, or it helped them to go to the next stage. Where I think it's harder is for the smaller regional festivals, where it's not really, you know, you get a laurel and that's nice, but you go there because the experience is fun. You know, the Oxfords and the Sidewalks and the Napa Valleys. I mean, they're great festivals, St. Louis, you know, and they're really fun to go to. But so I think those are going to be harder, but they're finding fun ways to do it. I mean, Oxford's set up their own drive-in now, and that's been a lot, and I know that's been going really well for them. So, but those are, you know, and they're working with their local communities in a way, you know, that's much more meaningful, you know, for the community, which is good too. So, but yeah, but the whole travel aspect of being on the festival circuit and meeting people and doing outrageous things and trying to forget about them, you know, that those days are, it's going to be a while until that comes back again. So.
Okay, and because I unfortunately have to wrap this up. I actually have I have another interview after you,
sorry.
But that's okay. No. Wait, don't be sorry for anything.
Quick questions.
I just want to end with what's a good. You interact with so many. What I love is that, like, if you're an alumni of Slamdance, it's a great organization. It's the type of, like, it's almost like a curated of the cool films that didn't get into Sundance. They play Slamdance, and they're better movies to me. Way more fun, way more punk rock, taking more risks, more genre movies too. Like Vast of Night played. Vast of Night played, and now it's on Amazon. So a lot of just really cool stuff comes through Slamdance. But what are the things? What is sort of some indie film truths that you really love to pass along, other than, you know, marry a doctor, because that's a good one. But are there are a couple more that you could impart before we have to unfortunately wrap it up?
Sure. Marry an entertainment lawyer, then you get a free entertainment lawyer. So that's another good one. I think the biggest hard truth is that indie films, or probably any films, don't make money, and you know, for all kinds of reasons. You know, you can do everything right, and then your distributor goes bankrupt and owes you $50,000, and that has literally happened on almost every one of my movies. So if you know that, if you accept that as a truth, all right, well then how do you raise money from people? You know, it's not, you know, for 120 years, people have gone to investors and said, oh, my film's going to make money. And then your film doesn't make money, and then those investors break your kneecaps, and then they don't invest in your next film, they don't invest in your film after that. So what I think the good thing about crowdfunding is it's really kind of started to change the paradigm about how we think of, we don't think of investing in films as much as we think about backing films. And so if you can get sort of investors and donors and backers to start thinking about it in those terms, like, oh, I'm going to give you money just like I give money to the opera or to the symphony or local community theater, or the quote unquote lively or legit arts, which, by the way, those are all struggling now because they can't exist. But films, you can make a film now and show a film now, maybe in someone's living room, but you can still get it out there. You can't do that with a stage show. You can't do that with opera as much. So, but the point is, if you start thinking about, if we get people that get investors and people with money to start thinking about film as a legit art form to which you donate money or back a film, and you don't expect to get anything more back than than a mug or a tote bag. That's just like NPR. It's not like people give NPR and they're investing in it and expect Terry, Gross is going to give them a cut of her profits. No, that doesn't happen. It's a nonprofit. That's why I like, teaming up with getting a fiscal sponsor, getting in my case, it's Film Collaborative, a 501c3. And, and I still can give people the option if they want to invest, you can, but just don't expect to make money, and don't break my kneecaps when we don't, because I told you so.
On that note, I would say that my experience is that you really need to manage expectations. Why are you making this? Why are you making this movie? What is your end game? What is your goal? You should never go into an indie film thinking I'm making this movie to make money. Yeah. Hollywood already does that. They have people that are incredibly talented whose job is to do that. And even they don't do that very well. Right. Yeah, like there's no guarantees, even with the best people involved, that a Hollywood film will make money. Ask any SAG actor who looks at their residual, that bar in Burbank, I forget which one it is, where you can bring
residual system.
I got a check for 27 cents recently. I don't know. You can get a free drink for that. But I think managing expectations is important. And I think you have to look at, like, if you're talking to someone who wants to put money into a film, why are they putting money into the film? And I think if you can appeal to their ego and their sense of adventure, it's fun to be. It's almost like, why are you a sports fan, right? Like, I'm on this team. I'm a part of the experience. This is why professional sports is tanking. It has everything to do with that. There's no audience, right? And the audience is a part of the show. It's a part of the experience. And I feel if you are an investor in a movie, you're doing it to have that experience, to go to the screening or the premiere or be at a festival or to go to your country club. Not that I know anyone that goes to country clubs, but if I knew someone and they went to a country club, I'm imagining that they would say to their country club buddies, as they just got finished playing racquetball and they're in the locker room and they're about to go in the shower. Why am I getting so descriptive? They could just say, oh yeah, I invested in a film. It's ego. It's like, why do rich people collect art that costs too much, so ungodly sums of money? It's because they can say that they did that. And I feel like it's about, you appeal to someone who has the means, you appeal to their ego and their sense of adventure, and they're investing for the thrill. It's like, why do people gamble, right? Like,
or why did they buy horses? It's very similar. Right. It's the same mentality of why people buy horses, why they buy wineries. Those never make money apparently. Or why they buy boats. It's the same kind of thing. I think it's because at their country club they will impress their friends. Like, oh, I had a film at Sundance. What did you do with your horse?
Well, exactly. And then of course you've got to have those tickets for those VIPs that traveled all the way there because they gave you, $50 grand or $100 grand. And so it's important to have a broad range of types of friends. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of friends that have a lot of money. But I have a lot of friends who have a little bit of money. So that's how I've been able to fundraise with my crowdfunding. Exactly. Unfortunately, Dan, I gotta do another podcast. This is like never happened.
That's crazy tough.
8 all the time. No, it's not a bad thing. I love it, but you got to come on again when you're screening it or when there's some release information.
18 and what's the name of the movie and how can people give me money?
18 and a half is the name of the film. If you go to danmirvish.com, you can get a mug. You can be a part of this. You can tell your friends you invested in the movie, probably for giving Dan $40. And the film will come out, I imagine, sometime in 2021 at a film festival.
And it has an amazing cast in it. We have Bruce Campbell as Richard Nixon. We have Bruce Campbell as Richard Nixon. That doesn't.
Now he's played Richard Nixon and Elvis, in Bubba Hotep,
and Reagan. He played Reagan on Fargo. And Bruce was great to work with. And honestly, we were able to work with him during the quarantine because he's playing the voice of Nixon, and we were able to do it on a Zoom call.
That's great.
And do it remotely, and actually, it was probably easier and cheaper to do it that way. So we have him. We have Ted Raimi. We have John Cryer. Vondi Curtis Hall is amazing in the film. John Magaro from First Cow, if you like him. Willa Fitzgerald from Dare Me. Kathy Curtin, Sullivan Jones. It's a really fun cast, and everyone's been fantastic to work with. It was a really fun shoot up until we had to stop. And great cinematographer Elle Schneider. I don't know if you know Elle.
I know Elle. I know she lives in my neighborhood in Pasadena. I'll run into her at bars or restaurants. I mean, when they're open. But hey, I gotta run. Right, I know you gotta go too, because you gotta go raise this money.
I have to go raise money and finish editing the movie, or the footage that we do have. So
well, I want to thank,
and then people should also buy my book too, The Cheerful Subversive Guide to Independent Filmmaking, on from Routledge, available on Amazon, because that's the only thing working.
That's awesome. The Cheerful Subversives Guide. I love that. Look that up. Look up Dan Mirvish on Amazon.
I'm pretty sure you're mentioned.
That's awesome. Thank you. And you've been in my book, which is great.
I know, and I heard on a recent podcast you're coming out with a new edition, or you're working on a new edition.
Yes, I'm working on a new edition that'll be out in late 2021, early 2022.
That
and
is
it's going to be
it's
going to be like a book / website combo where you buy the book, then you get access to the website. It's going to be a whole new initiative that we're launching via Film Threat. But Dan Mirvish, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat. If you are a filmmaker, if you're a creator, you make videos on YouTube, whatever, this is a huge resource of music, stock footage, special effects. Literally, you can take for very low amount of money, take your low budget film and you can up your game, make it look like a big budget Hollywood production. Storyblocks.com/filmthreat. Dan Mirvish, thank you so much for being on the Film Threat podcast.
Thank you to all your listeners.
And go to danmirvish.com. That is the place to go to get all things Dan. Dan, it's always like you got to come on again. You know you're going to be on again.
I know.
You're going to be on again. All right.
It'd be rude not to.
All right. Miss you, man. Take care.
All right. Thanks, brother. Bye.